Worried about work, family, or other relationships? I'm Chuck Wolf, a pioneer in emotional intelligence. When live on the Emotion Roadmap, I use a proven 4-question framework to turn emotional roadblocks into clear next steps on air in real time. Join us Tuesdays at 5 p.m., twice a month on YouTube. Subscribe, go to YouTube, type in @CJWOLFE5, and ask to be notified when I'm live so you don't miss a show. Call in when you see the number on screen. In 1990, the psychologists who sparked the science of emotions asked me to help translate their research into everyday tools. I built the Emotion Roadmap, a simple 4-question model that helps anyone improve how they manage their feelings and influence others ethically and effectively. On the Emotion Roadmap, take the wheel and control how you feel. We turn worry into clarity and stress into strategy. Each 45-minute episode blends practical psychology, common sense tools, guest experts, and live caller coaching. Smart, capable people often get stuck when emotions run high, and this show helps you get unstuck fast. When you call, you help everyone else who listens. As I help you, I explain how the Emotion Roadmap works so that everyone listening is learning to use the process. To learn more about me, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. I have been very lucky in life and have worked with and learned from some of the greatest thinkers in the world at Harvard and Yale, other places, and I want to bring what I have learned to hopefully make a meaningful, positive difference in your lives. Enjoy and tell your friends and your family. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I want to thank everybody that's tuning in today, and I want to just simply say that I'm delighted to be here with you. I've got some topics that I always have with me to talk about, but it's so much more fun when somebody calls and we get engaged. And I want to thank John, the caller from the last time I was on the air, who called not only to tell me that he had been a caller before, but that the advice that he got had made a big difference in his life. And it was really something that had helped to turn around a tough situation with a person he wanted to marry, and things are much better with them. And it looks like they are going to get married. And he wanted to start a business, and the business is taken off, and he's feeling really good about that. And so thank you, John, for calling in. But also in the show that I've done over the years, I've had lots of callers. I've had people like Mary who called in and wanted to get some help with her boss, who was great and had really taken her under his wing and had worked with her really closely, got her up to speed. And now she was thinking, I can do more on my own. But how do I say that to him? I don't want to feel like I'm not grateful for all the help he's given me. So Mary got some help about how to be emotionally smart, about how to thank someone for the help that they're giving you, but at the same time being thoughtful about how you tell them, I think I'm ready to do more on my own. It wasn't easy to do that. I've had John, who was a teammate in a team that wasn't functioning the way that he needed it to, and he wanted somehow to raise the issue of accountability, and he tried to find some way to do it without making everybody feel like he was an outlier and didn't fit with the rest of the group, and that he was being critical of everybody else, and somehow he was better than them. How could he talk to the team about how important it was, from his perspective, and mine as well, for the team to be accountable and to share how important it is and how great it feels when you know you can count on the people that work alongside you to do what they say they're going to do? So I'm encouraging people who are listening today to think about, are there issues in your world today where you might feel stuck? Where you might feel like, hey, I'm not really sure I know what to do here. I've got something that's kind of eating away at me a bit. And the whole concept behind the title of the show, The Emotion Roadmap, and Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel, is that most of us can be so much smarter about how we deal with our existing feelings. Once you recognize that our feelings are designed to be helpful to us, they're always there to be helpful and to really be there to help us to survive. It's an evolutionary system, according to Darwin, that we have an emotional system that alerts us to when we should be concerned. The original stress response was either I'm going to eat what's in front of me or it's going to eat me and I got to run. So the goal is not to live out those early primitive emotions, but to recognize where they're coming from, why they exist. But if I get mad at somebody in the workplace, I'm not going to fight with that person, physically at least, and I'm not going to run away. I can't really run. There's no place to go or to hide. So I'm going to have to deal with it. How do I deal with it? It was Aristotle who said many, many years ago, to be angry in the right way, at the right time, for the right reason, with the right person is possible. But most people can't really get that right. But you can learn to be better at this. So even during Aristotle's time, people were talking about, how did we deal with our anger? What if we're grieving? We lost something. We lost our job. We lost a loved one. We lost a pet. What if we lost something and we're sad? But, it's been months now, and it's time to move on. How do I let go of the sadness? How do I get my life back together? And there's a variety of ways to do that, and this show's about that. Sometimes I can help people change how they're feeling. Now, other times, those feelings are really, they're there and you can't really change them. But perhaps I can help you change the narrative, the self-talk, what you're saying to yourself about what you're feeling. Another strategy involves actually changing your behavior. Now, I might not feel happy. I might actually be somewhat sad, even depressed possibly. But if I write down a list of the things that I do that I enjoy, and I code that list, I have a little spreadsheet I set up. Like, does this involve other people or is this by myself? Is this something that costs money or is it free? Is this something that I can do easily or will it take some planning? And I start to look at the things that I really love to do. I like to go horseback riding. I love to swim. I love to play racket sports. I love being with friends. I love seeing a movie. I love watching Westerns on TV. So if I start looking at the things I like to do, and I make a list of them, even though I'm sad and depressed, I'm still capable of changing my behavior in this way. And then putting a time frame on each of the things so every day I'm doing something that I know I enjoy. Now, at first, it might be that I'm doing it with a sad face, and it's not creating the feelings I want. But as I do more of the things that I really like and I really enjoy, for a lot of people, that's a way to change yourself from feeling somewhat sad, even depressed, to feeling some joy in your life again, to raising the possibility that you can be more happy than you are right now. So if you've got something in your life, either at work, where you're not happy with some of the circumstances surrounding the work that you do, you're worried about artificial intelligence. I think most people are today. You're worried about how to cope, how to be prepared, how to get ready. You're just worried about any changes being sort of rumored at your workplace or openly talked about. Somebody's going to buy your company. There's going to be layoffs, perhaps you've heard. Robotics or artificial intelligence are going to take your job. There's a lot of concern out there today. Maybe you're worried about the political theater. We just had another attempt on the president's life and on the lives of a lot of people, including the media, with a shooter that went in the other night to the Correspondents' Dinner. There's so many things that you could be worried about right now, or concerned about, that are emotionally upsetting. And if you've got any of those things going on, I enjoy helping people. That's why when John called and I'd given him some advice that he took to heart and he ran with it, and things got so much better between himself and his fiance and his own family, his immediate family. His mom was really happy with the changes that she was seeing from him. And that came because he was willing to call and ask for help. On another show that I'm on WPKN, that's a radio station in Bridgeport, Connecticut. It's a community radio station. I'm on there tonight, actually, with a pre-recorded show when this one's over. So if you enjoy listening to me, you can hear a show that I've done with sort of selected excerpts from different other shows I've done, where I've put together a pre-recorded show that's going to talk about why emotional intelligence is so incredibly important today. I actually have a panel that I organized. It was for Harvard Business School alumni, and the members of the panel that came and spoke were all brilliant practitioners and researchers in the field of emotional intelligence. And one of them, Carrie Chernus, is on this show at 6 p.m. on WPKN. You can listen on 89.5 FM at 6 or to WPKN.org. And that's where, as a volunteer, I'm talking with Carrie about a book that he has written a couple of years ago now, and it's about leadership strategies. And one of the things that he talks about on that show is the idea of a really successful leader, someone that was identified through a lot of research practices that he and his colleague Cornelia Roach put together to ask people about who is the most effective emotionally intelligent leader you know or you work with. And why would you say that about them? And what makes them so emotionally intelligent? So anyway, they selected these leaders based on a lot of data they collected. And one of those leaders was being interviewed by Carrie, and he shared with them a story, and Carrie repeated it in the show a little later, but I'll tell you about that particular incident right now. He said this leader was struggling when I talked to him, because he said, what Carrie said was that when I was talking to this leader, he had a negotiation coming up with a customer. And while he was very effective at negotiations, this leader was very effective at almost everything that he did. But this particular customer triggered him. And I talk about triggers a lot. But in this case, this particular customer seemed to know how to get under this man's skin in a way that always ended up with him just wanting so much to close the conversation that he would give up all kinds of things. Never walked away feeling like he had a good deal with this customer. And he was telling Carrie about this story, and he went on to say that, look, I was struggling with this, and I was out to lunch with someone who was mentoring me, an ex-CEO that I had become very friendly with over the years. He was older than me. He had guided me in a number of instances. And even though I didn't ask him for help very often anymore, on this particular day, we were having lunch together. And I did ask him about that. And he said something to me that has made a difference. And even though I'm frustrated right now because I think I wish I could do this, I did find a way to get this done. So I'm actually feeling better than I might have been otherwise. And Carrie said, what happened? He said, you know what? I decided to ask him for help. Now, that's not an easy thing to do when you're in charge of a large company, because as a person who is supposed to have all the answers, asking for help it makes you feel like I'm supposed to know that. But in any case, I asked this man for help, and he said, one of the things you want to think about is you have had very little success in negotiating with this person, and you keep coming back and you keep trying, and it's gone on for several years now where you haven't had success, and you keep beating yourself up about it when it's all over. And so maybe you want to think about, why does it have to be you that goes? What if you take someone that you know is a pretty good negotiator, maybe not as good as you, but a good negotiator, and this person doesn't know what triggers the person you're going to send, and see how that deal goes. He took his advice. He sent somebody out that was different than himself. This time he sent somebody he didn't feel like he had to let his ego go a bit, because his ego said, I should be able to do this. But he took the man's advice, his colleague's advice, and the other person came back with a great deal and didn't have any problems. And so when he was talking to Carrie about it, he said, I'm still upset that I couldn't do this, but I'm much happier with the deal that we got. And I was so thankful that I was willing to ask for help. So that's one of the strategies Carrie identified as what makes for an emotionally intelligent leader, not being afraid to ask for help. I tell you that story because that's what I'm here for. I'm here from 5 o'clock to 5:45 p.m., just like with John, who called last week, to help people with what's going on in their lives, where they feel stuck and uncertain about how to proceed. If you have any doubt about a situation coming up, a tough conversation that you're going to have, a situation where, somebody at home isn't getting along with somebody else, or you're the person who isn't getting along with someone at home. Or if you want some help with, a divorce situation where there's, two different parents, with their own households, trying to work out how to get along with the kids. If you want some help with somebody who's got a team that is not functioning the way they'd like their team to perform at a high level, and you need some help with that, those are the things that I've helped people with all my life, and that's why I do the show as a volunteer. And so I'm going to ask you, if you got something going on in your life, join me. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Neil Young had a great song. One of the lines in it is, "Don't go away saying it might have been. Geez, I wonder if I called this guy Chuck, and I asked for him help, and if I got some, like John did the other week, I'd be better off than I am right now, because I'm really not sure what to do about whatever it is in your life that's got you stuck." So the number to call, you should be able to see it on the screen. The number is 402-225-0781. 402-225-0781. And again, you should see it on your screen. Once you dial that number, it's going to ask you for a PIN. And again, the PIN's on the screen, but I'll read it to you. 882-041-574, and then the pound sign. So one more time, 402-225-0781. That's the number. The PIN, 882-041-574, and the pound sign. And when you call in, you'll be able to hear me. My good friend Cole is monitoring the phone lines and the computers, and I'm doing this at the Simsbury Media Studio, which I'm very thankful for. And you'll reach Cole. Cole won't say anything, but he'll let me know you're on the line, and then I'll say, "Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. You're live. Who am I talking to, please?" And you can give me your real name or just any name you'd like to be called, so I have a name to address you by. And then I'll ask you, so tell me what's going on for you. Just tell me the executive summary. It's only 45-minute show, so just tell me a little bit about what's going on. Just the key points. Tell me who's involved that's key. Maybe it's just you, something internal you're struggling with. Or maybe there's one or two or more people involved that are really important to it. And I'll ask you, how is each person feeling? How are you feeling, and how is each of the other people that are key feeling? And then I'll ask you if you could make magic happen. And you thought, boy, this would be so much easier if I could just figure out a way. If I could just figure out a way to create a different feeling for myself and a different feeling for the other person. I want to think about what would be ideal for each of us to feel and try to create that. That's what I help with. By focusing on changing the feelings, numerous options appear. Like magic sometimes. Like magic. One of the people in the show on PKN tonight will be talking about an experience that they had where they were helping another person because they had learned about how to use this emotion roadmap. And the other person they were coaching was talking about they have this really, really difficult conversation coming up, and they're really nervous about it. And as she listened to it, she thought, I'm going to try this emotion roadmap. And she said, well, tell me how you're feeling. She said, well, I'm really nervous. I'm really upset. I want to feel good as I'm giving the talk, but mostly I want to go in feeling really confident that I know what I'm doing and that I know how the other person is going to respond, and I want them to respond in a certain way. Well, how do you want the other person to feel too then? And they said, well, I want the other person to feel, particularly when they're leaving, appreciated and heard and valued. But I also want them to understand that I've got a few things I need them to do differently. So I don't want them to be defensive. I want them to be accepting and open and also feel supported. And so she and this other person sat down and they said, well, let's try out a few different ideas about what might work. And let's have some conversations. Let's role play these conversations. Now, I don't always do that, but that's another technique. And that's what they did. And they had a bunch of different examples of the conversation and how it might go. And when it was all said and done, she said, thanks a lot. And then a couple of days later, this woman ran into the woman she had been talking to. And the woman said, Oh, and she asked, how did the conversation go? And she said, I don't know what I was afraid of. Everything went so smoothly. It was great. But thank you so much for helping me be prepared. I felt so much more confident going into the conversation, thinking about how I wanted to feel and how I wanted the other person to feel. So those are some ways that make people feel like they're more in control of their emotions. They have the ability to influence other people's feelings. And they're thoughtful about what they want that other person to feel. So I hope that you decide, look at the top of the screen. If you got something going on, that you give me a call. Always more fun to engage in conversation with somebody who wants to get the help. And when you call in, not only will I be helping you, but everybody else will be hearing how this works. Now, I'm trying to give you examples of how it works in light of phone calls, but I encourage you to call in. So look at the number on the screen. Call the number. When it says put the pin in, hit the pound sign, and you'll be connected. And you won't be saying it might have been at the end. You'll have a chance to talk with me, and I'll have a chance to help you. And helping you is one of the things that gives me great pleasure in life. So I hope that we got somebody calls in. It's always easier after the first caller for other callers to call in too. And I know that, by the way, Cole told me last time we had 40 and 50 listeners tuning in. Now, maybe some of them tuned in and watched this afterwards, because you can watch the YouTube channel, mine or the stations, after the fact. And if you want to watch my station for whatever reason, I've got a bunch of other shows on there. You can look at you go to YouTube and type in C for my name, Charles, J for James, and then my last name, Wolfe, W-O-L-F-E, C-J-W-O-L-F-E 5. And that will bring you to my station. And you can subscribe to it, and that way you'll be notified when I'm going live. So I hope you choose to do that. Even if you don't call in, I hope you choose to do that, because you get to see a lot of different shows. I try to give a pretty good explanation of what I talk about on the shows. So I have a few other topics I said I'd talk about today. I want to talk a little bit about something that's very dear to me, and that is a relationship with my grandchildren. Now, one of my grandchildren is he just turned 15, and he's competing in a sport where he's really good. He made second all team in the state where he lives. I don't want to give a lot of information about who he is, but I just want to say that he's really good at what he does, and he's competing at the top levels in high school. He's a freshman in high school. He was the best person on his team in high school. Got all kinds of awards. Also got a student athlete award. He's a really smart young man. And he was in a tournament that we went to see the other day. It was down in the New Haven area. And we watched him compete. And he had some brilliant moments. But then he got really beaten badly by somebody that was ranked. And he struggled with coming up to the stands and talking to us about it. And when we were talking, I'm really try hard not to give feedback that sounds judgmental. And I asked him, I said, would it be okay if I shared with you some thoughts about what happens when you're getting beat? Because it's happened to all of us. I've been a competitive athlete myself, and over the years, I've had some great wins, but I also had some really tough losses. And I've learned some things I think that are helpful that maybe you want to think about. But I'll only share it if you feel that's okay. He said, sure, Grandpa, what is it? So I tried to explain to him. I said, look, part of this is knowing that you're going to lose sometimes. And so there might always be somebody that might be better than you at something, but the person that you want to think about that you're competing with isn't really the person in front of you. It's yourself. Because if you can focus on what just happened, like just today, and go back and think about what you might have done differently that might have helped you to be more successful, not necessarily beat the person, but to be more successful, what would that be? If you look at failure as an opportunity to learn and to grow, and that the competition is with yourself, to always look to see if you can be better. if you can learn something that makes you better, if you can grow and be a little bit higher capability and competency in what you learn how to do, you can always feel some success, even when you've lost to another person, because you know you're getting better and you're growing and you're learning. And so he thought about that. And I said, some of the things that you need to say to yourself in the middle of the exercise where you're getting beat pretty good, that's a whole nother question about emotionally. How do you deal with that? I said, can I tell you a little more? And he said, okay, Grandpa, because not everybody can handle a lot of feedback at any one time. And I'm very careful about not overdoing it. But he said, okay. I said, well, one of the things you want to think about, and this is different for everybody, I said, is when you might be losing, what can you say to yourself instead of the narrative that's likely to be in your head, which is, I can't believe how badly I'm getting beat. I'm so mad at myself. I'm getting upset. I'm more and more upset. I keep making mistakes I know I shouldn't make because I'm getting more and more flustered and angry. Instead, how do you want to feel instead of those feelings? Can you feel a sense of calmness within the storm, where you feel like there's a storm raging around you in terms of the performance that's happening, but somewhere deep within your brain, there's a message saying, what am I learning here? Is there something I can do now, or is it something I'm going to have to reflect on afterwards? Is there some way I can be better in the moment? Now, I said, I can say what I just said to you, and maybe you could say certain things that remind you of what I'm saying. But for each person, you have to create your own narrative. It can't be somebody else's. So while I might have given you some ideas, you need to form a narrative that works for you. So that's pretty much the conversation we had. And then we talked about other things. We moved on with our lives. I didn't see him. He and his family went home. And then my daughter called me and said, I got to tell you about the tournament that your grandson, our son, was in today. I said, great. She said, he started off and it wasn't one of his best performances. And he kind of went deep in the hole and the other person was leading. And he somehow dug deep and he came back and he won. And that didn't just happen once. That happened 5 times. Each time when he started, he didn't start as well as he would have liked, but he dug deep and he found a way to win. And at the end, he actually won the whole tournament. Now, it was a much smaller tournament. It wasn't a lot of ranked players, so it wasn't as big as the place where he'd been. But think about what he learned. And hopefully a little bit of that was some of the help that I had given him about trying to help anyone. Think about what you can say to your own grandkids or your own children, or to your spouse when they've had a particular upsetting day at the office or on the job or whatever. What you might say is, think about what you might learn from this moment where you haven't felt successful. Talking about failure is tough for people, so I don't know that I'd call it failure, even when it might be, but just saying that you weren't successful today, what might you learn? The more comfortable you get saying, I failed today, and I want to know what I can gain from that. I want to know what I can learn, how I can be better, how I can be different. Well, that's something that I found really quite joyful to hear about. And hopefully when I see my grandson, I'll ask him a bit about it. I won't dwell on it. I don't even need to know that it came from me, but that I planted some seeds, and however they grew for him, it helped him dig deep when things weren't going his way and turn them around and turn what might have been a failure into a win or a success. So I hope that's helpful for you to think about. Again, I'll encourage you to call in. You see the number at the top of the screen. If you got something that you'd like to talk to me about, we still got time. I've got, it's 5:27. I got about 20 minutes or so that I can still talk with you. That's plenty of time to be helpful. So one more time, the number is 402-225-0781. And the PIN 882-041-574 and the pound sign. Okay, so another thing I wanted to talk about today and is how do you motivate people? So for those of you who have listened to me on other forums, I've been on the Trinity College radio station in recent times. Again, I've been for 17 years on WPKN down in Bridgeport, Connecticut. By the way, again, it's 89.5 FM if you want to listen to the show. If you have access to 89.5 FM and it works in your area, that's great. I find in Simsbury that, for me, they have an app. You can download the WPKN app, and you can listen to it on the app if you have a smartphone or even on your computer, or you can just go to WPKN.org. And if you have a hard time remembering the letters, a lot of people do. You tell people, and everybody's got radio stations they've known for years, and they've got those in their head. So trying to remember WPKN isn't easy. But the way I've thought about it, and a little mnemonic I created for people who want to remember what the letters for the show are, is every time you think about leaving your house, when you're walking out the door, you need a few things, don't you? Well, what do you need? Well, one thing you typically need is your wallet. That's the W in WPKN. The other thing most people need is their phone, and that's the P. And the K is for your keys, because a lot of us are driving someplace. So it's wallet, phone, keys, WPK, and N. Need anything else? So WPKN, wallet, phone, keys, need anything else? Maybe that's a way to remember if you want to listen to me at 6 o'clock. It's a great show. It's a show with Carrie Trinas. And then I have some other people on the show. After the conversation with Carrie about leader strategies, I have 3 senior business people, all owners of their companies, who work with me really closely to learn how to use the emotion roadmap over a period of several months. And they have great stories of how they're using it in their workplace and also in their home life. Just to stay on the theme of kids for a minute, one of the people, Lois Elrich, who had worked with me and is on the WPKN show tonight, talks a little bit about using this with her grandchildren. And she uses it this way, and it's a really interesting way. She said, say, Sammy, how are you feeling right now? How is your sister feeling after what just happened between the two of you? Is that how you want her to feel? Are you feeling the way you want to feel? What would you like to feel, Sammy? And what would you really like for your sister to feel now? If you could magically make the feelings change, what would you want them to be? Okay, so if you want to feel that way and you want your sister to feel that way, what can you and I think about or do so that's going to happen? Well, how can we help to change those feelings so you're feeling the way you want to feel and your sister's feeling the way she wants to feel? And that doesn't sound like now I'm talking to just me. That's not like judging him, but something happened between her grandkids and she wanted to try to help make it right. And instead of saying, hey, go apologize, which is typical, or go say you're sorry, and it's not real when the kids say that. And it feels like they're being judged to them, and not in a good way. And so they're maybe mad at you for making them do this. But you feel like you did what you said, what you wanted to do, because you're holding them accountable. And by the way, that's really important, that everybody learns to be accountable. So that's a good thing. But what if you did it differently by asking him how he's feeling and how his sister's feeling and how he wants to feel and how he wants her to feel? And engaging in a calm dialogue and then thinking through, is there something we can do to make that happen? How can we make that happen? How can we get the feelings we want for you, Sammy, and for your sister? So again, those are some ways for kids to learn about this idea of being more in control of your emotions and helping others to be more in control of theirs, or also being able to influence other people's emotions. I hate the idea of people saying how to control your emotions or control other people's emotions. I like to think of it more soft in the sense of influence. Not that you're manipulating somebody else, but you're trying to get somebody to feel better or sometimes it isn't happy you want somebody to feel. Different feelings for different situations. It isn't always about I just want to be happy all the time. There are times when in life when you really need to be focused and tense. When you're looking at a problem to be solved, you really got to concentrate, and you want to look at all the possibilities of what could go wrong with the solution you're thinking about. And you can't be happy when you're doing that, because you'll miss details. You can be a little sad. You can't be too sad because the sadness takes over, but you can be a little sad or a little anxious. That helps to focus at times. So you really want to be thoughtful about what you want to feel, why you want to feel that way, and how it's going to be helpful to you. And again, that's what the show's about. So, okay. So the number, it's on the board. Feel free to call if you still have any interest in speaking to me about trying to get some help with something that's going on in your life. So I hope that at some point people who are watching and listening feel confident enough to pick the phone up and make a call and get some help. Again, it's a leadership strategy Carrie Trinnis identified in Leader Strategies that make for emotionally intelligent leadership. But it's really anybody. You don't have to be a leader. You just need to know that it's a strategy to ask for help when it's being offered, and you have an opportunity to get some help that might help you turn the corner in a situation where you really don't know which way to turn, or how to resolve a conflict, or take advantage of an opportunity, or deal with a messy problem in some way, or a tough conversation of some kind. Okay. One other thing I want to talk about then today is this idea of alignment. When leaders are not aligned, the performance of the organization often suffers. Now, again, if you happen to be someone who's come across from listener land and WPKN, and you've listened to me for a number of years, you know that I'm a Boston sports fan, particularly the Red Sox, the Patriots, the Celtics, and the Bruins. Now, the Red Sox, as many of you who pay attention to baseball may know, just fired their coach, Alex Cora, who, when he first coached the Red Sox, first year as a coach, won a world championship with them, 2018. People like this guy a lot. But then he's had some problems. He was part of a group in Houston, and they called the Houston Astros, that had stolen some signs, stole some signs about what was pitches that were coming, things like that. And they got in trouble for it. And so he was banned from baseball for a year. That happened one time. Okay. But he came back, and the Sox had him again, and they performed really well last year and they don't have the really high paid talent that some other teams have. If you look at the Dodgers, the Los Angeles Dodgers, again, if you're a baseball fan, you know this. They have spent more money than any other team on the players they have on their roster. They don't care about luxury taxes. They don't care about it. They just want to win. And they just won the World Championship last year. And if you're not a Dodgers fan, you hate that team spent all that money to have all the best players and that they won. Now, the only time that's okay is when it's my team that's doing that. Then it's okay. People who are fans get that, I think. Anyway, my point is, I want to just say to you that the Red Sox strategy was to have a lot of young players, to build farm talent, to have succession plans, to bring people up in the minor leagues, and to not pay them a ton of money, but to get really top talented athletes to come into the league, capitalize on who they are, recognize their talent, give them a big contract early on before they command enormous amounts of money, and then go from there and hope that you can win a championship with a lower payroll. Now, I think that the people in charge, John Henry's the principal owner. He won 4 world championships since he's owned the team. So kudos to John. But he seems to have lost some interest in the team in recent years and has gone down this direction of not paying for top talent. It's a long story. And I think Alex Cora, as much as they liked Alex, and Alex wanted to coach the Red Sox, I think he was embittered somewhat. I don't think he controlled it all that well. Sometimes it came through that they didn't hold on to some of their really talented players and give them some big money and extended years. And I'm not saying he was right or he was wrong. I'm just saying I think he was not aligned with the people who were now the general manager, a fellow named Craig Breslow, and with the owner, John Henry. And what they did was they decided to fire Alex Cora. I mean, we're just at the very beginning of the season. There's plenty of time for the Red Sox to make a run, but nothing seemed like it was clicking the way it was supposed to. And so they made a decision. I think we got to let Cora go. I know the fans love him. A lot of the players really love him, but I don't think he's aligned with our strategy, and I think the players feel that. And who did they bring up? They brought up a guy named Chad Tracy, who was the minor league coach for a lot of the young people that they brought up. And a lot of these young people who are on the Red Sox today owe the fact that they're in the major leagues playing for the Red Sox to Chad Tracy. And as much as they might have been sad to see Cora leave, because I think a lot of them really like Cora, I think they're thrilled that Chad Tracy is getting this opportunity. And what do you know? They have their longest win streak since Chad came up. Now, Cora got one win before he left. And then the last two games, Chad Tracy's been the manager, and they've won 3 in a row for the first time now since this season started. Whether it continues or not, I don't know. But I do know that the alignment is much more powerful, that the people involved are emotionally aligned all the way through. Tracy's thrilled to have this experience to coach in the major leagues. The players who are thankful to Tracy for helping them to make it to the major leagues, to the Red Sox, are so happy he's there. They know how he empowered them, how he believed in them, the confidence he had in them. And honestly, they all seem to be playing a little better. Now, again, I don't know if it holds, but it is interesting, isn't it, to think about? Oh, and they also let go of a bunch of the hitting coaches as well. The coaches, I guess, that were aligned with Cora were gone. But they kept the pitching coach because he was aligned with Craig Breslow. And lo and behold, the two pitches in the last couple of games, and the pitching's been horrible for the most part. The two pitches in the last 2 games pitched great. Now, again, maybe Cora was already turning it around because the game where he was fired, the Red Sox won like 17-1 or something. They exploded. And so maybe this was all about to happen anyway. I can't tell you for sure. But I can tell you that it feels different to me, and I think to them. And I think that's a good thing. So I do want to tell you one other thing, I think. How do I teach people about this emotion roadmap? How do you get to really learn about it? And part of that is you want to think about how do you incentivize people to really pay attention when you've got an online course you want them to go to. So I just want to tell you about this thought I'm having. I have the chance to work with some people in the Disney World complex. I won't say a lot about them because, again, it's not. I don't want to talk about the work so much as this is a group that has decided that they want to work with me because one of the people in the past had done some work with me and really felt it was transformative and that it had changed his life in a really positive way. Not different than John, who called last week and told me how transformative my one conversation with him was. And I'm sorry you didn't choose to call. By the way, I want to announce that I'll be on next Tuesday, which is the 5th of May, from 5 to 5:45 again. And then 2 weeks later on the 19th. So if you want to remember to listen in, if you want to think about what you want to say to me, how you want to say it, again, I'll be on May 5 at 5 o'clock. And I'll be on again on May 19th, same time, 5 o'clock to 5:45 on YouTube. Okay. So in any case, what I want to tell you is that I'm trying to think of ways to get these people who are very busy. This group decided that the first time through, they wanted to get some of their best people together. And the best people they have are what we call high potential inside organizational life. These are people that can have the ability to be promoted at least more than 2 levels. and they're the best people in the organization. And they want to take these people and put them through this online program I created to teach them about the emotion roadmap. Now, it's an online course. They've got to spend time reading, watching videos, reflecting, journaling, and then trying to come up with some ways to address what they're learning in ways that make a difference so that they're a better leader as a result. Now, everybody's got some self-motivation to want to be better and grow, but they have so many things that are so critical every day. If these are the top high potential people, they're very busy with very important objectives every day for this organization. So how do they take the time to go off and read something? How do they take the time to watch a video and to take time to reflect and journal? So I try to think, what are some ways I can motivate them? And I thought, what matters most? And this is a key thing you want to ask yourself when you're trying to influence others. What matters most to them? So I thought, well, one thing that's important to people like this is that they're seen as accountable. So I decided I would partner them up. In other words, what you're going to be responsible for, you're going to go off and do in a week's time, and then we're all going to meet. And we're going to talk about what you did. Now, if you haven't done any of the reading, if you haven't done any of the work, you're probably going to not have much to say. But I'm going to ask you to partner with one or two other people and get together so that you know what you're going to say when you come in. So we're all prepared. So that's one way I want to get you to be accountable. You're going to have a partner. If you don't show up for your partner, then they're showing up and they're doing the work, but they feel like somehow you're missing action. Not a good thing. The second thing I want to just tell you is that you're going to have the need to show to senior management at the very end of the 6 weeks that we're doing this, what it is that you've learned. So you tell them, based on this class, thank you for allowing this to happen. This is what I learned. But at the same time, what you learned is important for you. But we're going to ask you to present to the senior leaders of this group how else you can get other people involved in this, learning about this emotion roadmap, and how good can the whole organization be? How can the organization develop, not just the people, the individual leaders? So that's it, folks. That basically closes out the day, and I want to thank you again. This is Chuck Wolf. You've listened to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And at the same time, I want to thank everybody who's listened that might have got some value from this. And if you got something you're thinking about calling in about, listen in next week at 5 p.m. I'll be back on the air on next Tuesday at 5 p.m. and then also on the 19th. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Take care. Bye-bye now.
For over 40 years, SCM
has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education,
and live broadcasts.
SCM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings,
and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SCM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.